in partnership with CommSec.
So on that note, let's bring in Tom Piotrowski with a look at the markets today. What's the lead from the US and overseas, Tom?
Well, Pete, it's quite constructive in terms of what we have seen for US and European markets. Gains of as much as 4.5% at one stage for the Nasdaq at its best levels of overnight trade on Wall Street. But enthusiasm was tempered towards the end of the session, and the Nasdaq finished with an improvement of around 2.5%. There were gains in excess of 3% for both the Dow and the S&P 500 at their best levels of the session last night. But again, that enthusiasm was tempered towards the end of the day. The S&P 500 finishing with a gain of 1.7%. The Dow up by a little over 1%. European markets are higher across the board. The German DAX up by more than 3%. So it's important to understand that we still remain in that headline-driven market. That's what investors were responding to last night. The US president indicating that he didn't have any intention of sacking the head of the US Federal Reserve. That's always a comforting conversation to have, Pete. But it's also important to create some context around that headline around tariffs and China that you mentioned. So there was a conversation about just taking the temperature down on the conversation with China, the potential for lower tariffs. But the Treasury Secretary said that a deal with China could take up to 3 years to hash out. So you're definitely talking about the medium term. Nonetheless, that lowering of temperature in relation to China in particular and the Fed was a factor that saw US markets at their best levels of the day. And that's important to note in terms of why the local share markets only expected to open with a small gain this morning, because our market yesterday rose by 1.3%, and it was in that Asian time zone that we were getting some of these comments relating to the Fed and China that was helping bolster regional markets. So that's why we'll be flat today. But worth keeping an eye on gold names, because gold backed off a little bit last night. It was down by as much as 2.5%. Oil prices were also lower last night, so that led to the underperformance of energy stocks. The Aussie dollar, having traded around 64.35 yesterday afternoon, has pulled back to around 63.5 US cents as we speak right now.
Okay, Tom Piotrowski, thank you.